Words cannot express how honored and how happy I am to join your celebration of Black History Month. I shall begin by telling you about some of my ancestors. My grandfather was born a slave. When slavery ended, he formed a group to found the first Black Baptist church in our county, one of the first in Louisiana. He was also one of the founders of the first school for Black children in our county. His daughter, my mother, started as a maid, went to college, became a teacher, and became one of the first Black principals in our county. One of her children taught law at Rutgers. Another of her children taught pediatric medicine at Baylor. Another retired as a surgical nurse at the MD Anderson Cancer Center. One of her children became a Robert Wood Johnson Fellow in Washington, D.C. Another became the state's first Black Republican state senator since Reconstruction. She did all of that, and she only had 3 children. My daddy was an inventor, businessman, welder, musician, educator who created and ran the first trade school for Blacks in our county. Also a traveler, hunter, motorcyclist, airplane pilot, airplane owner, and bootlegger extraordinaire. All 3 of my ancestors believed in God, in education, and in hard work. They are my personal history. And that takes us to Black History Month this year, 2021. But this year is not the Black History Month that I want to talk about. Today, my mind and my heart are on Black History Month 2041, 20 years from now. I'm not worried about whether or not I'll be here. I'll be only 96, much younger than my parents, both of whom lived into their hundreds. I'm worried about whether we will be here. Will we be here? Will we be a viable community? What will life be like for us? We have survived slavery, Jim Crow, the civil rights struggle, but the question is, will we survive the next 20 years? Another question is, how many of us will be here in 20 years? We are 13% of America's population. There are almost 1 million babies aborted every year. 3/4 of those are Black and brown babies. The present administration has already moved to expand abortion and greatly expand abortion funding. They plan to double the number of abortions on demand. That would be 2 million babies killed every year. 1.5 million of these aborted would be Black and brown babies. America's Black population is being squeezed from both sides, between the very high abortion rate and the very high murder rate. This Black on Black murder rate is the #1 cause of death of young Black men in America today. Between abortion and murder, and the murderers going to prison, I just don't know who's going to be here in 20 years. And if any of us can survive abortion, murder, and prison, there's a big question of what will the Black population be like? On January 31st, there was a major news story in the newspaper. It was buried on the back page, but it should have been on the front page. The headline said that 75% of Louisiana's 4th graders were below proficient in English and mathematics. That was a figure for all Louisiana students. If the study had only analyzed Black students, the below proficient rate would have been beyond 90%, more than 90% unable to read, write, and calculate at grade level. And those figures hold across the country. I read somewhere in Baltimore they could not find 1 Black student proficient in mathematics. In simple language, the American public school system is a gross failure to the Black community. Urban schools produce more drug dealers, dropouts, and single mothers than they produce doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Go to any hospital, count the number of Black doctors, count the number of registered nurses, not CNAs, RNs. You won't need a pad, you won't need all your fingers. You probably won't find one. And that's today. In 20 years, with a largely uneducated population, we'll be a nation of packers, loaders, and burger flippers. And that leads us to the next problem, jobs. A while ago, I explained that my granddad, mom, and dad taught me that the way out of poverty was through God, education, and hard work. We see that education for black children has gone to hell. And hell is not a cuss word. Hell is a bad place where educating our children does not belong. Our job prospects are equally dismal. Without education, our job prospects are going to be limited to unskilled labor positions. And even those are in jeopardy. Those dodos in D.C. want to raise the minimum wage to $15. Two things will happen. One, businesses will mechanize so that the businesses will hire fewer people. And two, adults are going to go back to those entry-level jobs that now pay twice as much. Biden's attacks on charter schools and his efforts to raise the minimum wage will have more black folk out of work and dependent on them, the DC dodos. Biden once told a group of black folk, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. What he should have said is, if you don't vote for me, you ain't working. Now let's talk about those crazy, insane politics in Washington. $30 trillion in debt. And our unfunded accrued liabilities total almost $160 trillion. That's money that we owe to retirement systems, Social Security, government bonds, and so forth. That totals almost $200 trillion of debt. That's more debt than any person, corporation, or nation has owed in the history of life on earth. I'm an old bankruptcy lawyer, so I know what broke looks like. We look broke, and those jerk politicians keep spending money like there's no tomorrow. Just look at the COVID relief bills. Billions to foreign countries, billions to take care of illegal aliens, billions to art and entertainment, and a few nickels to the American people. If you consider these dollars and no common sense politics, you will see that governments can go bankrupt. Ask Greece, ask Detroit. And the people most hurt are the people who are dependent upon government. With no education and no jobs, black people will become more and more dependent on government. And therefore, they will be the first ones whose lives will be shattered by a government going bankrupt. Finally, there's the issue of separation. For the first time in American history, a large number of black Americans are alienated and separated, feel alienated and separated from America. Many feel pushed out, so they're angry and they're separating themselves from America. As we look back over the centuries in America, before and during slavery, black Americans fought for the freedoms and opportunities available in America. Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Dr. King, Malcolm X, all fought for full integration into American society. During all of these years, there was a very brief flirtation with the Back to Africa movement. And in the 1960s, there was a small movement led by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to get separate territory in the American South for a separate black nation. But no, black Americans want in, not out of America. Dr. King taught us as young marchers that we were to dress properly, behave properly, speak properly, show everyone that we were young American ladies and gentlemen. But not today. By language, by dress, by hairstyle, by behavior, many young people are saying that we are separate, we are different. We have our own music, our own language, our own culture. We don't love you, America. Let me remind you of what has happened all over the world. In all of the history of the world, groups which have chosen separation over assimilation often don't fare well. Whether it's Hutus wiping out Tutsis in Africa, Nazis wiping out Jews in Germany, whether the Rohingya being thrown out of Myanmar, Muslims being sent to concentration camps in China. It's very sad watching people wiping out each other. But over and over, time after time, those who choose a separate path wind up on the short end of the stick. My advice is the same as those black leaders from American history. Become Americans, or get out and go somewhere else. Don't wind up trying to be here and be a part of this, apart from this. There it is, I stand before you as an elder, one who has fought for black freedom and equality for more than 60 years in states from Maryland on the Atlantic to Washington on the Pacific, from south to north and back south again. If you want to be alive as a community, if you want to thrive as a community, if you want to have history to celebrate and be here to celebrate it in 20 years, then outlaw abortion. Educate your children. Make sure that your people have job opportunities. Watch those politicians and their spending. Beware of the dangers of separation. My brothers and sisters, on this day, let us celebrate yesterday's accomplishments and successes of our ancestors. But at the same time, let us guarantee a path to tomorrow's successes for our children. Without tomorrow's opportunities and freedoms, we have no future. Without a future, we have no black history to celebrate in 20 years.